November 1961 marked one of the most dramatic moments in automotive history. Enzo Ferrari, the legendary founder of the prancing horse, made a decision that would create his greatest rival. During a heated confrontation at Ferrari headquarters, the volatile leader dismissed his most talented employees in what became known as the Great Walkout. Carlo Chiti, Ferrari's chief engineer, and Giotto Bizzarrini, the brilliant designer behind the Ferrari 250 GTO, found themselves unemployed. These weren't ordinary engineers. Chiti had masterminded Ferrari's Formula One dominance, while Bizzarrini had created some of the most beautiful racing cars ever built. Their dismissal sent shockwaves through the automotive world. But this story wasn't about revenge. It was about vision. Count Giovanni Volpi, a wealthy Italian aristocrat with deep pockets and deeper ambitions, saw an opportunity. He approached the displaced Ferrari engineers with an offer that seemed too good to refuse. Volpi would provide over $100 million in funding to create a new sports car company that would surpass Ferrari in every way. The company they formed was called ATS, which stood for Automobili Turismo e Sport. The name itself was a direct challenge to Ferrari's dominance. Chiti and Bizzarrini weren't just starting a car company. They were declaring war on their former employer. The ATS 2500 GT represented everything these engineers had learned at Ferrari, refined and perfected. The car featured a revolutionary 2.5-liter V8 engine that produced between 220 to 250 horsepower. More importantly, it pioneered the mid-engine layout that would become standard for supercars. This was the first Italian mid-engine grand touring car, placing the engine behind the driver for perfect weight distribution. The engineering was flawless. The ATS 2500 GT could accelerate faster than contemporary Ferraris and handle better than anything on the road. Every component was crafted to perfection, from the lightweight aluminum bodywork to the precise suspension geometry. The car represented the pinnacle of early 1960s automotive technology. But perfection came at a devastating cost. While the engineers focused on creating the ultimate sports car, they ignored basic business realities. Each ATS 2500 GT required hundreds of hours of handcrafted assembly. The production process was more suited to creating art pieces than commercial vehicles. The real disaster wasn't the road car program. It was Formula One. ATS entered Grand Prix racing with the same perfectionist approach that doomed their road cars. They spent enormous sums developing race cars that were technically superior, but financially ruinous. Every race weekend cost hundreds of thousands of dollars with little return on investment. Count Volpi watched his fortune disappear as quickly as he had invested it. The ATS Formula One program consumed money at an alarming rate while producing minimal results. Meanwhile, the road car division struggled to complete even basic production runs. Each car took months to finish, and quality control issues plagued every aspect of manufacturing. By autumn 1963, the writing was on the wall. ATS had burned through Volpi's massive investment without establishing sustainable production or sales networks. The Count, realizing his dream had become a financial nightmare, withdrew his support. Without their primary financier, ATS faced immediate bankruptcy. The company ceased operations in autumn 1964, having produced exactly 12 ATS 2500 GT road cars. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering and design. Each one also represented a financial loss of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, those 12 surviving ATS 2500 GTs are among the most valuable collector cars in the world. They represent what might have been if brilliant engineers had understood business, as well as they understood automotive perfection. The irony is profound. The very qualities that made these cars extraordinary also guaranteed their makers' destruction. The Berkeley SE 328 tells a different story of automotive ambition. This wasn't about exotic supercars or racing glory. It was about making sports car ownership accessible to ordinary people, and how even the most practical dreams can lead to devastating consequences. The story begins with two men who shared an unlikely vision. Laurie Bond was a brilliant automotive designer known for creating economical three-wheeled vehicles. Charles Panter owned Berkeley Coachworks, a small manufacturer specializing in caravans and utility vehicles. Neither man seemed destined to create sports cars, but their collaboration would produce one of Britain's most innovative small cars. In the mid-1950s, the British automotive landscape was dominated by expensive imports and costly domestic sports cars. Bond and Panter saw an opportunity to create something different. They envisioned a lightweight, affordable sports car that could deliver genuine performance without the astronomical price tag of traditional British roadsters. The Berkeley Sports SE 328 emerged from this collaboration as something truly unique. The car featured a 328cc Excelsior air-cooled two-stroke engine that produced 18 horsepower. While this sounds modest by modern standards, the Berkeley's revolutionary construction made every horsepower count. The SE 328 utilized a fiberglass body that weighed significantly less than steel construction. This wasn't just about reducing weight. Fiberglass allowed Berkeley to create complex curves and aerodynamic shapes that would have been impossible with traditional manufacturing methods. The result was a car that looked like a miniature Ferrari, but cost a fraction of the price. More revolutionary was the front-wheel drive layout. In 1957, front-wheel drive was virtually unknown in sports cars. The Berkeley SE 328 pioneered this configuration for performance vehicles, placing the engine ahead of the front wheels for optimal traction and handling. This layout would eventually become standard for most modern cars, but Berkeley implemented it decades before anyone else. The performance figures were genuinely impressive for such a small car. The SE 328 could reach 62 miles per hour, 100 kilometers per hour, making it faster than many larger, more expensive vehicles. The lightweight construction meant acceleration felt brisk despite the modest power output. More importantly, the car handled like a go-kart, providing genuine sports car thrills at economy car prices. Berkeley's success in motorsports proved the design's effectiveness. The SE 328 competed successfully in racing events across Europe, with the highlight being Lorenzo Bandini's victory in the 1958 Monza 12 Hours race. Bandini, who would later become a Ferrari Formula One driver, demonstrated that the little Berkeley could compete with much larger and more powerful vehicles. Between 1957 and 1958, Berkeley produced 1,259 SE 328 models. This represented a significant portion of their total vehicle production of 4,100 units. The car found enthusiastic buyers across Britain and Europe, establishing Berkeley as a legitimate sports car manufacturer despite their humble origins. However, Berkeley's success in sports cars masked a fundamental business vulnerability. While the SE 328 generated positive publicity and respectable sales numbers, the company's primary revenue source was caravan manufacturing. These travel trailers provided the steady income that subsidized sports car development and production. The British caravan market in the late 1950s was experiencing unprecedented growth. Families were discovering the joys of mobile holidays, and demand for travel trailers seemed insatiable. Berkeley Coachworks had built their entire business model around this expanding market, with sports cars representing an interesting but secondary venture. This dependency became fatal when the caravan market suddenly collapsed in 1959. Economic conditions changed rapidly, and British families could no longer afford luxury purchases like travel trailers. Orders disappeared almost overnight, leaving Berkeley with enormous production capacity and virtually no revenue. Charles Panter and his team tried desperately to shift focus back to sports cars, but the damage was already done. The SE 328 program, while successful, couldn't generate sufficient revenue to replace the lost caravan business. The sports car market was simply too small to support the company's overhead and workforce. On December 12, 1960, Berkeley Coachworks filed for bankruptcy. The company that had created one of Britain's most innovative sports cars ceased operations, leaving hundreds of employees without work and thousands of customers without support for their vehicles. The tragedy wasn't that Berkeley failed to create a good product. The SE328 was genuinely revolutionary, pioneering technologies that wouldn't become mainstream for decades. The tragedy was that success in automotive innovation meant nothing when the core business collapsed. Today, surviving Berkeley SE328 models are highly sought after by collectors who appreciate their historical significance and unique engineering. These cars represent a road not taken in automotive history, showing how small manufacturers could create genuinely innovative vehicles when freed from conventional thinking. The Gordon Keeble story reads like a textbook case of how not to run a sports car company. Every decision seemed logical in isolation, but together they created a perfect storm of financial disaster. This wasn't about flawed engineering or poor design. The Gordon Keeble GK1 was objectively superior to its competitors in almost every measurable way. That superiority became the very reason for its maker's downfall. John Gordon and Jim Keeble founded their company in 1959 with ambitious plans to create the ultimate grand touring car. Both men had extensive experience in the automotive industry, and they understood what customers wanted. They envisioned a car that would combine American V8 power with European sophistication, wrapped in stunning Italian bodywork. The concept they developed was genuinely brilliant. The Gordon Keeble GK1 would use a proven 5.4-liter Chevrolet Corvette V8 engine, producing 300 horsepower. This power plant was reliable, powerful, and easily serviceable anywhere in the world. Unlike exotic European engines that required specialized maintenance, the Chevrolet V8 could be repaired at any garage in America or Europe. For the bodywork, Gordon and Keeble made an inspired choice. They commissioned Giotto, then a 21-year-old designer at Bertone, to create the car's styling. Giotto was already showing signs of the genius that would later produce the Lamborghini Espada and countless other automotive masterpieces. His design for the Gordon Keeble was elegant, purposeful, and timelessly beautiful. The GK1's construction utilized a fiberglass body mounted on a sophisticated steel chassis. This combination provided excellent rigidity while keeping weight reasonable. The car could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour, 96 kilometers per hour, in under 6 seconds, making it faster than contemporary Aston Martins, Jaguars, and Ferraris. More importantly, the Gordon Keeble offered superior reliability compared to its competitors. British sports cars of the 1960s were notorious for electrical problems, oil leaks, and frequent breakdowns. The GK1's American engine and carefully engineered systems eliminated most of these issues. Owners could actually drive their cars regularly without constant trips to the repair shop. The company even created a memorable brand identity. The Gordon Keeble emblem featured a tortoise, symbolizing the car's philosophy of steady, reliable progress rather than flashy but unreliable performance. This tortoise logo became synonymous with quality and dependability in the minds of potential customers. Production began in 1964, and initial reviews were overwhelmingly positive. Automotive journalists praised the GK1's combination of performance, comfort, and reliability. The car handled beautifully, accelerated impressively, and could be driven long distances without drama. Everything suggested that Gordon Keeble had created the perfect sports car for discerning enthusiasts. The first sign of trouble was the pricing strategy. Gordon and Keeble decided to position their car as an affordable alternative to established brands like Aston Martin. They set the GK1's price at £2,798, significantly less than the £4,200 or more demanded by Aston Martin dealers. This pricing seemed logical from a marketing perspective. The Gordon Keeble offered similar or superior performance at a substantial discount. However, the reduced price meant minimal profit margins on each car sold. The company needed to sell hundreds of vehicles to achieve profitability, but their production capacity could barely handle dozens. Manufacturing problems began almost immediately. The GK1's sophisticated design required precise assembly and high-quality components throughout. Gordon Keeble struggled to establish reliable supplier relationships, particularly for specialized parts like the Adwest steering boxes. These steering systems were prone to failure, requiring expensive replacements and damaging the company's reputation for reliability. Each production delay cost enormous amounts of money. Gordon Keeble had committed to delivering cars at specific dates, but manufacturing problems meant constant missed deadlines. Customers who had paid deposits began demanding refunds, creating immediate cash flow crises. The company filed for bankruptcy in May 1965, less than 2 years after beginning production. A group of investors attempted to revive the brand, forming a new company to continue GK1 production. However, the fundamental problems remained unchanged. The car was too expensive to build and too cheap to sell profitably. The second iteration of Gordon Keeble struggled through 1966 before succumbing to the same financial pressures that had destroyed the original company. By 1967, all production had ceased permanently. The total production run amounted to exactly 100 cars, with 90 still surviving today. The Gordon Keeble failure illustrates how excellence can become a liability in business. The GK1 was genuinely superior to its competitors, but that superiority came at costs the company couldn't absorb. Every system was over-engineered, every component was specified to the highest standards, and every process prioritized quality over efficiency. Customers who bought Gordon Keebles received exceptional value for their money. The company that built them received nothing but financial ruin in return. Today, surviving GK1s are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, proving that Gordon and Keeble's vision was correct. They simply couldn't afford to wait for the market to recognize their achievement. The Delorean story represents the most spectacular automotive bankruptcy in history. John Delorean seemed to have everything needed for success: brilliant engineering credentials, deep industry connections, charismatic leadership, and over $100 million in government backing. His failure wasn't gradual or subtle. It was a catastrophic collapse that destroyed careers, wasted taxpayer money, and became a cautionary tale for an entire industry. John Delorean's background suggested inevitable success. He had risen through the ranks at General Motors, becoming the youngest division manager in company history. Under his leadership, Pontiac had transformed from a stodgy family car brand into a performance icon. The GTO, Firebird, and Trans Am all bore his influence. Delorean understood both engineering excellence and market psychology better than almost anyone in Detroit. In 1973, Delorean shocked the automotive world by leaving his executive position at General Motors to start his own car company. This wasn't a midlife crisis or impulsive decision. Delorean had spent years developing plans for a revolutionary sports car that would redefine the industry's approach to design, manufacturing, and marketing. The Delorean Motor Company was founded in 1975 with unprecedented fanfare. Delorean's reputation opened doors that remained closed to other entrepreneurs. Hollywood celebrities, Wall Street investors, and government officials all expressed interest in supporting his venture. The British government, desperate to create jobs in Northern Ireland, offered massive financial incentives to locate production in Belfast. The car that emerged from this collaboration was unlike anything previously attempted. The DMC-12 featured a stainless steel body that would never rust, gull-wing doors that created instant visual drama, and advanced engineering throughout. Giotto, the same designer who had created the Gordon Keeble, styled the Delorean with angular, futuristic lines that looked like science fiction brought to life. The stainless steel body represented both the car's greatest innovation and its most serious problem. Delorean believed that rust-proof construction would appeal to consumers tired of replacing cars every few years due to corrosion. The brushed stainless steel finish looked spectacular and required no painting or maintenance. However, working with stainless steel proved exponentially more difficult than anticipated. The material was harder to form than conventional steel, requiring specialized tools and techniques. Quality control became nearly impossible, as standard repair methods wouldn't work on stainless steel panels. Every minor production error resulted in scrapping expensive materials and starting over. The gull-wing doors created similar problems. These doors looked amazing and generated enormous publicity, but they required complex hydraulic systems and precise adjustment. Each door system cost hundreds of dollars to manufacture and install properly. More problematically, the doors were prone to failure, leaving owners literally unable to exit their vehicles. Under the hood, the DMC-12 utilized a 2.8-liter PRV V6 engine developed jointly by Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo. This engine produced only 130 horsepower, barely adequate for a car weighing over 1,200 kilograms, 2,650 pounds. The performance was disappointing compared to the car's exotic appearance and premium pricing. Delorean had originally planned to use a more powerful Chevrolet V8 engine, but emission regulations and fuel economy requirements forced the switch to the less impressive V6. This compromise satisfied government regulators, but disappointed customers who expected supercar performance from a supercar-priced vehicle. Production began in 1981 at the purpose-built Belfast facility. The British government had invested over $100 million in the factory, equipment, and worker training. Initial production targets called for building 30,000 cars annually, generating thousands of jobs in an economically depressed region. Reality proved far different from projections. The Belfast workforce, while enthusiastic, lacked experience building precision automobiles. Quality control problems plagued every aspect of production. Panel gaps were inconsistent, electrical systems failed regularly, and mechanical problems occurred frequently. Each car required extensive rework before shipment, destroying any hope of profitability. Meanwhile, the American market was experiencing its worst recession in decades. Interest rates exceeded 20%, unemployment was rising, and discretionary spending had virtually disappeared. The DMC-12's target customers simply couldn't afford to buy new sports cars, regardless of their innovative features. John DeLorean spent increasingly desperate months trying to secure additional funding. The company was burning through millions of dollars monthly while producing cars that cost more to build than they could be sold for. Every DMC-12 that left the factory represented a substantial financial loss. The end came swiftly and dramatically. On October 19, 1982, John DeLorean was arrested by FBI agents in a Los Angeles hotel room. Federal prosecutors charged him with conspiracy to distribute cocaine, alleging that he had attempted to finance his failing company through drug trafficking. The arrest generated worldwide headlines and destroyed any remaining investor confidence. DeLorean Motor Company filed for bankruptcy on October 26, 1982, exactly 1 week after its founder's arrest. The Belfast factory closed immediately, putting thousands of workers out of jobs and leaving the British government with enormous losses. Total production amounted to approximately 9,000 cars, far short of the projected volumes needed for profitability. John Delorean was eventually acquitted of all criminal charges, with his lawyers successfully arguing that he had been entrapped by government agents. However, the acquittal came too late to save his company or reputation. He spent the remaining years of his life fighting lawsuits and trying unsuccessfully to restart automobile production. The DMC-12's legacy proved more enduring than its manufacturer. The car's starring role in the Back to the Future film trilogy introduced it to new generations of enthusiasts. Today, surviving DeLoreans are valuable collector cars, prized for their unique design and historical significance. The irony is inescapable. John DeLorean created exactly what he promised: a revolutionary sports car that would be remembered forever. The technology, design, and marketing were all successful beyond his wildest dreams. The only thing he couldn't achieve was making money while doing it.